You have come through the fire. My child, you have walked through the deepest of the valleys. You have weathered a storm so great and so prolonged that it threatened to tear your very world apart. And you are here. You are standing now, weary and wounded, on the other side, looking back at the smoking, desolate wasteland of your trial. And by every human measure, you are a survivor. But the great fight has taken everything from you. I see it. I know it. You are weary in a way that words cannot describe. It is a weariness that has settled deep in your bones. It is a weariness of the mind, which has raced with anxiety for so long. It is a weariness of the heart, which has been broken and has had to beat on. It is a weariness of the very spirit, right, which has fought to hold on to a shred of faith in the deepest darkness. Now that the adrenaline of moment-by-moment survival has finally begun to fade, a profound and a hollow exhaustion has settled upon you, and you look at the peaceful shore you have landed upon with a numb and depleted heart. And as you begin to catch your breath, I know the story that you are beginning to tell yourself, the narrative you are constructing to make sense of how you possibly made it through. It is a story of your own grit, your own stubborn willpower, your own relentless endurance. You look back at the battle and you tell yourself, I held on, I fought, I refused to give up, I survived. And in one sense, my beloved, you're right. You have been more courageous than you will ever know. But there is a deeper, a more glorious, a more restful, and a more powerful truth that I must now reveal to you. It is a truth that will not diminish your courage, but will place it in its proper context. It is a truth that will lift the heavy burden of your survival from your weary shoulders and place it onto my strong ones. You believe that you walked through the fire on your own 2 feet. But I have come to you today to tell you the story from my perspective, to reveal the unseen reality of your journey. For I am the one who has carried you through. Before you can fully embrace this liberating truth, we must first honor the story you have been telling yourself, for it has been your reality for a very long time. You have begun to wear the identity of a survivor like a hard-won badge of honor, and in many ways, it is. You have endured what would have utterly destroyed many others. You have faced down your greatest fears, and you are still standing. Yeah, but this identity, I know, has also come with a great and a heavy burden. It is the burden of a fierce and a lonely self-reliance. It subtly whispers to you that you are strong, that you are the one who gets yourself through the hard times, that your survival is ultimately up to you. And this identity, while it may have served you for a season, now places the immense weight of your past survival and all of your future survival squarely on your own shoulders. And it is a weight, my child, that you were never created to carry. It is the weight that is the very source of your profound exhaustion. I have seen your effort. I have not been a distant or an uncaring observer. I have seen every moment that you chose to get up when you had been knocked down. Again, and again, and again, I have seen you bite your lip to keep from crying out and push through the pain when every fiber of your being wanted to quit. I have seen you make the hard choices, sacrifice your own comfort for the sake of others, and fight with a tenacity that has made all of heaven stand in awe of the strength that I have placed within the human spirit. I have been a witness to your white-knuckled grip on life. I have seen the immense mental strain of your long battle, the constant internal monologue of, I must hold on. I cannot give up. I have to keep going. I have felt the physical tension in your body as you have lived for years in a state of high alert. Your muscles constantly brace for the next blow, and I have seen the profound loneliness of your fight. You have perceived your battle as a solitary one. You have made impossible decisions in a vacuum of your own heart. You have wrestled with your greatest fears all alone in the middle of the night. You have felt that no one else in the entire universe could possibly understand the specific nature of your trial. And in many ways, you were right. No one else could. But your aloneness was an illusion, for I was there, understanding perfectly. And I see the great cost of your survival. I see the joy that has been lost along the way. I see the damage that the long-term stress has done to your physical health. I see the strain it has placed on your relationships. I see the deep, deep weariness that is now your constant companion. I honor the price you have paid, but even as you tell yourself this noble story of your own strength and your own endurance, I know that there is another, more secret and shame-filled, counter-narrative that runs through your mind. It is the memory of the moments you almost didn't make it. It is the memory of the moment you were 1 second away from giving up completely. It is the memory of the night your will finally shattered and you whispered into the darkness, I can't. I am done. I have nothing left. You are haunted by these moments of your perceived ultimate failure. You believe that you only survived by a hair's breadth, by some strange twist of fate, or by sheer dumb luck. And this creates a deep and a terrifying insecurity in your soul. For you know, in your most honest moments, that your own strength was not. In the end, enough. And that, my beloved child, is the most glorious truth of all. Your strength wasn't enough, and it was never meant to be. Your story of your own endurance is true, but it is not the whole truth. It is like the story told by a small child who has been carried through a great and terrible blizzard by their loving father. The child may remember the feeling of the cold. They may remember the biting wind. They may remember the feeling of struggling and fighting against the snow, but they are completely unaware of the strong and loving arms that were holding them the entire time. They are unaware of the great, warm coat that was shielding them from the worst of the wind. They are unaware of the powerful legs of the Father that were actually moving them forward through the deep snow. You have been so focused on your own desperate struggle to survive that you have been completely unaware of the one who was, in every moment, ensuring your survival. You have been so focused on your own walking that you have not realized that for most of the journey, your feet were not even touching the ground. You thought you were walking through the fire by your own grit. But I was the fourth man in the furnace with you, standing between you and the flames, absorbing the worst of the heat so that it would not consume you. You thought you were weathering the great storm by your own skill and strength. But I was the great and mighty ship, and you were a passenger, hidden deep in my hold, completely safe from the great waves that were crashing. Not against you, but against me. You thought your survival was a matter of your own tenacity, but your survival was always, only, a matter of my grace. Your tenacity was the beautiful and courageous response of your heart, a response that I have treasured. But my grace was the ultimate cause of your victory. You thought you were holding on by a single, fraying thread. But my child, you must understand, I was the thread. So let the heavy burden of the survivor identity begin to lift from your shoulders. You do not have to be the hero of this story. You do not have to carry the immense weight of your own survival, for there is a deeper, a more restful, and a more glorious truth. I am the one who has been carrying you. I am the one who has brought you through. And now that you know that I was carrying you, I want to take you back with new eyes through the landscape of your past trial. We must now revisit the battlefield together so that I can show you the undeniable evidence of your unseen companion. You have now heard my great and central declaration, the truth that undergirds your entire existence. I am the one who has carried you through. But I know that this truth, in all its glory, may still feel abstract to your weary and wounded heart. It may feel like a beautiful theological concept, but not yet a lived and visceral reality. So now, I want to make it as real to you as the ground beneath your feet. I want to take you back with new and enlightened eyes to the long and desolate shore of your past journey. I want you to look with me at the trail of footprints you have left in the sand. And I want to reveal to you the great and beautiful mystery of your unseen companion. When you look back on the long beach of your life, I know the story that you see. You see a trail of your own footprints, a trail that tells a story of struggle and of pain. You remember the early parts of the journey, in the seasons of your youth and your peace, where you walked with a firm and a steady stride on the hard and wet sand by the water's edge. But then you see where the trail moves into the deep, soft sand of your great trial. You see where your steps became uneven, where they faltered, where the imprint of one foot is deeper than the other, for that is where you began to limp from your wounds. And then you see the parts of the trail that cause you the most shame. You see the places where your footprints disappeared altogether and were replaced by the desperate, ragged marks of your hands and your knees. For that is where you were too weak to even stand, and you were forced to crawl. And finally, you see the place where even those marks stop, the place where you collapse in the sand, able to go no further. This is the story you have seen written in the sands of your time, a story of your own faltering, painful, and ultimately failing journey. And in your heart, you have cried out to me with the words of the great poem that has been written about this very experience, Lord. You said that once I decided to follow you, you would walk with me all the way. But I have noticed that during the most difficult and sorrowful times of my life, there's only one set of footprints. I do not understand why, when I needed you most, but you would leave me. And now, my precious, precious child, I must answer you, as I have always longed to answer you, the times when you have looked back at your life's path and have seen only one set of footprints in the sand. It was then, in those very moments of your greatest trial, that I was carrying you. There was only one set of footprints, because your own weary feet were not even touching the ground. Let us revisit the specific terrains of your journey, and let me show you where I was carrying you. Remember the season of your deepest grief. This was the deep, soft, and treacherous sand of your sorrow, where every single step was an immense and a draining effort. You felt that you were sinking with every move you made, that you had no solid ground to stand on. You look back at the trail through that season, and you see a single set of footprints, and they are pressed deeply into the sand, as if from a great weight. And you have thought that those were your own prints, evidence of your own heavy-hearted struggle. But, my child, those footprints were mine, and they were pressed so deeply into the sand because I was carrying not only my own weight, but the full and crushing weight of your sorrow as well. I was carrying you, my weeping child, through the soft sand of grief that would have surely and completely buried you. Remember the times you had to walk by the very edge of the sea, where the powerful waves of anxiety and the terrifying riptide of fear threatened to pull you under and to drag you out into the deep. You remember fighting against it with all your might, struggling to keep your footing on the slippery, wet sand. You look back at the trail of your life now, and you see a single, steady, and an unwavering line of footprints, walking on the high ground, just beyond the reach of the highest and most frightening wave. And you have thought to yourself, with a touch of pride, that you somehow managed to stay on that high ground by your own vigilance and your own effort. But that was me, my beloved. That was me, walking the shoreline, carrying you high up in my arms, holding you safe and secure against my chest, far from the tide that was so desperately trying to drag you out into the sea of despair. Remember when you came to the great and steep dune of your impossibility? It was a challenge in your life, a problem so great, so high, so steep, that you knew with an absolute certainty that you could never climb it. You remember the feeling of trying, of your feet slipping in the loose, shifting sand, of taking 2 steps forward and sliding 3 steps back. You remember the feeling of utter hopelessness as you finally collapsed at the bottom of that great dune, completely defeated by it. But then you look at your life now, and you see that you are, somehow, on the other side of that dune. And when you look back, you see a single set of powerful, purposeful footprints leading straight up and over that impossible obstacle. And you have no memory of the climb itself. You remember only the trying and the failing. And then, a blur. That is because I carried you over it. When you collapsed at the bottom, I stooped down. I gathered you up. And I, the God for whom nothing is impossible, climbed that dune for you, with you held safely and restfully in my arms. And remember the long, dark nights on the beach. There were seasons of your journey when there was no moon and there were no stars. You were in a complete and a disorienting darkness, unable to see the path, unable to see the horizon, unable to see anything at all. And in those nights, you simply sat down in the cold sand, shivering and afraid, believing that you were stationary, that you were losing a precious time, that you were making no progress at all. But I want you to look now with new eyes at the trail of footprints from these dark seasons, and you will see that even on those nights, the single set of my footprints continued to move steadily forward. I did not stop walking. I carried you as you slept the fitful sleep of a frightened and exhausted child, moving you ever forward, step by step by step, toward the dawn that you could not see. I am asking you now to perform a holy and a healing act of the memory. I want you to look back at your entire journey, at every single moment of your trial, and every time you see a memory that you have labeled, "This is where I barely survived." I want you to retitle it. I want you to retitle it. "This is where my father carried me." Every time you remember a moment where you thought, "I almost didn't make it," I want you to change the narrative and to say, "This was a moment where my father's strength was made perfect in my weakness." I want you to understand that your survival was never, for a single moment, in question, for you were always, always in my loving and capable care. The story of your life is not the story of your own heroic and lonely struggle. It is the beautiful and tender story of a loving and a powerful father carrying his beloved and weary child through a difficult and a dangerous landscape. The evidence has been there all along, written into the very sands of your own history. There was only one set of footprints in your hardest times, because I, your God, your Father, your Savior, and your unseen companion, was carrying you all the way home. You now hold in your heart the beautiful and restful image of your journey as a walk along the shore, with me as your unseen companion, carrying you through the most difficult passages. But I know that for much of your trial, your life has not felt like a walk on the beach. It has felt like a brutal and a bloody war. And so now, I must take you back with new eyes, not to the shore, but to the very heart of the conflict. I want us to revisit the battlefield of your great trial, not to relive the trauma or the terror, but so that I can show you the moments where the battle truly turned, so you can see how my strength in your weakest moments was the secret and decisive factor in your great victory. When you remember the battle, I know what you see. You see yourself as a single, terrified, outnumbered, and outgunned soldier on a vast and chaotic battlefield. You remember the deafening sound of the enemy's approach. You remember the feeling of your own heart pounding with fear. You remember desperately searching for cover, for a place to hide. You remember the feeling of being wounded, of falling to the ground, of believing with all your heart that the battle was lost and that your death was imminent. Your memory of the battle is one of chaos, of terror, and of your own profound inadequacy in the face of an overwhelming and relentless foe. But my beloved warrior, you were seeing the battle only from the limited and terrified perspective of your own foxhole. You could not see the full, strategic picture. You did not know that I, the Lord of Heaven's armies, was your supreme commanding officer, observing the entire field of battle from my heavenly command post. And you did not know that I had surrounded you with legions of unseen help. You thought you were fighting a desperate battle alone. But the truth is, the battle was always mine, and in your very weakest moments. The moments you were most certain you had been defeated. Those were the very moments that you were. In fact, being miraculously rescued. Let us now revisit some of the specific moments on that battlefield, and let me reveal to you my hidden activity on your behalf. Let us revisit the darkest night, the night before your great battle truly began. It was the night before you received the devastating diagnosis, or the night before the betrayal was revealed, or the night before your world fell apart. Do you remember that night the enemy, knowing what was coming the next day, had surrounded your small camp? The demonic voices of fear, of dread, and of despair were at their absolute loudest. You felt a terror so profound, so thick, so palpable, that you thought your heart would literally stop beating. You felt completely and utterly alone, convinced you had no strength at all to face the horror that you sensed was coming with the dawn. But while you saw only the threatening campfires of the enemy surrounding you, I saw a different reality, for I had dispatched a mighty and a glorious legion from my angelic host, an army of brilliant light, to encamp around you. They stood shoulder to shoulder, a shining and impenetrable wall of fire between you and the demonic forces that were seeking to destroy you with fear before the battle had even started. The peace that you felt for even a fleeting moment that night, the brief instant where your racing heart grew quiet, was not a product of your own courage. It was a supernatural overflow of the perfect peace of my heavenly hosts, who were standing guard over you as you slept, a silent, invisible, and invincible army protecting the child of their king. Now, let us revisit the moment of the fatal wound. Remember the moment the arrow hit its mark. It was the moment of your greatest and most painful wound, the moment the betrayal was made known, the moment of your most public and humiliating failure, the moment the doctor spoke the devastating news. In that instant, you felt a searing, white-hot pain, and you fell to the ground. And in that moment, you believed it was a fatal blow. You felt your very life force draining away into the dust of the battlefield. And you surrendered to what you believed was your own certain death. But as you fell, I was already there. As you were falling, I was already moving. I was the divine medic who rushed to your side on the battlefield with a speed that outpaces light itself. Before the enemy could rush in to finish you off, I was already kneeling beside you in the dirt. I placed my own hand on your deep wound to stop the bleeding. I poured the supernatural wine of my son's precious blood, a divine antiseptic that cleanses all sin and spiritual infection, into your wound. And I poured in the soothing, healing oil of my own Holy Spirit. I then lifted your broken form onto my own shield, and I carried you from the chaos of the front lines to a secret and hidden place of safety and of healing. You thought you were dying alone on the field of battle, but you were being rescued, attended to, and carried away by the great physician of your soul. Let us revisit the moment you were lost in the fog of war. Remember the season when you were trapped in a thick and disorienting fog of confusion. You were faced with an impossible decision, and you did not know which way to turn. Every path before you seemed to lead to potential destruction. You were paralyzed with confusion and with fear. You felt the full, crushing weight of the decision was upon your shoulders, and you were terrified that a wrong choice would be catastrophic for you and for those you love. But in that very moment of your paralysis, I, your great commander, spoke a quiet word of divine strategy into your spirit. It did not come as a loud command. It came as a sudden, strange, and supernatural peace that settled upon one of the options before you. It came as an inexplicable and illogical urge to simply wait and to do nothing at all. It came as a single word of scripture that you had not thought of in years, but that suddenly came to your mind with a brilliant light and a profound clarity. That, my child, was my voice. That was my direct command from the heavenly headquarters, cutting through the fog of war. I was giving you the specific, divine intelligence you needed to navigate the treacherous minefield that lay before you. The wisdom upon which you finally acted was not your own. It was a direct and a personal word from your commander. My beloved child, you have survived the great war of your past season. You have emerged from the battlefield, weary and wounded, but alive, and you are tempted, in your humanity, to look at your survival and to call yourself a great and a resilient soldier. And you are resilient, and you are courageous. But I'm now calling you to a deeper humility and a more glorious truth. You are not the great soldier who won the battle. You are the soldier who was constantly protected, miraculously rescued, divinely guided, and powerfully sustained by a great and a loving commander. Your victory is not a testament to your own skill in battle. It is a glorious and eternal testament to the wisdom, the power, and the profound, personal love of the one who is always fighting for you. You are a veteran of a great war. Yes, but the medals that you will wear for eternity are not medals that speak of your own valor. They are medals that are inscribed with the words of my grace. And your scars are not signs of your defeat or your shame. They are beautiful, glorious reminders of the specific battles that I have won for you. They are your testimony, so rest now. My faithful soldier, the great battle is over. The victory is secure, and it has always, from the very beginning, being mine. You have revisited the battlefield of your past with me, and you have seen with new and enlightened eyes that it was my strength, not your own, that rescued you in your weakest moments. You now understand the mystery of the footprints in the sand, and you know, with a deep and a settled peace, that I have been the one who has carried you through. But I know the logical and honest question that this glorious truth now raises in your heart. You are a child of a world that understands a simple principle. A muscle that is not used becomes weak. A person who is always carried never learns to walk on their own. And so you now wonder, with a sincere confusion, my Father, if you were carrying me this whole time, then what of my own strength have I become weaker? Have my own spiritual muscles atrophied from disuse? If you were doing all the fighting, have I learned nothing of warfare in carrying me? Have you made me into a spiritual invalid, one who is now forever dependent on you in a weak and helpless way? This is a profound and an important question, and we must now speak of the divine and beautiful paradox of being carried. In your physical world, your logic is perfectly sound. A limb that is kept in a cast for a long time becomes weak and atrophied. A child who is never allowed to stumble and fall will never develop the strength and the balance to walk with confidence. And you have feared that in my loving act of carrying you. I have inadvertently produced in you a state of permanent spiritual weakness and passivity. But my child, the laws of spiritual growth in my kingdom are often beautifully and wonderfully inverted from the laws of physical growth in your world. In the physical realm, strength is measured by a person's growing independence. But in the spiritual realm, true and lasting strength is measured by the growing depth of a person's joyful and conscious dependence on me. And so I tell you a great and glorious paradox today, the season in which I have been carrying you, the season of your most profound weakness and helplessness has been, in fact, the season of your greatest and most accelerated spiritual growth. You have never grown stronger or faster than when you have been resting completely in my arms. Let me show you how you grew stronger while in my arms. First, while I was carrying you, and your own physical and emotional muscles were finally at rest. The most important muscle of all the muscle of your faith was getting the workout of its life. You must understand that it takes no faith at all to walk when you feel strong. It takes no faith to fight when you feel powerful. But it takes an immense and a courageous act of faith to be carried. To be carried requires you to let go of the illusion of your own control. It requires you to place your entire being, your entire destiny, into the hands of another. It requires you to believe, against all your fears, that the one who is holding you is good, that he is strong, and that he will not drop you. Every single moment during your trial that you rested in my arms, every moment that you chose not to panic, not to struggle, not to fight against my grip, you were performing a powerful repetition on the spiritual muscle of your faith, a faith that has only ever known its own strength, is a brittle and an untested thing, but a faith that has learned to be utterly helpless, a faith that has learned to be carried, is the strongest, most resilient, and most powerful kind of faith there is. Second, while I was carrying you, we were in a state of the most profound intimacy, and it was in that closeness that your heart was being deeply purified. When a loving father is carrying his small, weary child, he has the opportunity to hold them close to his chest, to whisper directly into their ear, to wash their dirty face with his own hands. While I was carrying you, I had you in this very position of perfect intimacy and complete attentiveness, and in that sacred closeness. I was able to perform a deep and a delicate work of purification in your heart that would have been impossible while you were still frantically running around on your own. I whispered to you my secrets. I showed you the hidden pride in your heart that you were too busy to see before. I comforted the deep and ancient fears that you were unable to face on your own. I spoke my words of love and identity directly into the core of your being, the crucible of your helplessness. The state of being carried was the very place where I could finally perform the deep, internal heart surgery that you so desperately needed. You have grown in holiness in this past season, not by the greatness of the things you have done for me, but by the greatness of the work you have finally allowed me to do in you. Third, it was only in being carried that you could ever learn the true, beautiful, and radical nature of my grace. For as long as you were still standing on your own 2 feet, even if you were limping, you would have always believed, in a subtle or in subconscious way, that you were contributing to your own salvation, that you were a partner in your own survival. But the moment you collapsed, the moment you admitted, I cannot, and the moment you felt yourself being lifted and carried by a power that was not your own, was the moment you graduated from a theoretical understanding of grace to a deep and an experiential one. You have now learned in your very bones the glorious, liberating, and profoundly humbling truth that your salvation, from beginning to end, is entirely and completely my work. You have learned that my grace is not just my divine help when you are struggling. It is my divine life being given to you when you have none of your own. This deep, experiential knowledge of the nature of pure grace is a priceless treasure. A treasure that can only be truly learned when you have come to the absolute end of yourself. And finally, by experiencing my caring love, your own capacity to love has been forever changed and enlarged. You now know, in the depths of your being, what it feels like to be loved, not for what you can do, not for your strength, not for your performance, but simply for who you are. You now know what it feels like to be held and cherished in a moment of utter weakness and complete failure. And this profound and personal experience has now given you a new and a supernatural ability to love other struggling and weary people in the same way. You can now learn to carry the weak, the struggling, and the broken, because you yourself have been so lovingly carried. Your personal experience of my grace toward you has now become your greatest qualification to be a vessel of that same grace to a hurting and a broken world. Therefore, I am calling you now to a complete and a total redefinition of what it means to be strong in my kingdom. True spiritual strength is not found in your own willpower. It is not found in your own iron discipline. It is not found in your own impressive performance. True, deep, and lasting spiritual strength is found in the humble, the joyful, and the confident ability to admit your own weakness and to live in a state of constant, restful, and moment-by-moment dependence on me. The strongest child in my kingdom is the one who is most content to be held in their father's arms. And this new and paradoxical strength, this strength that has been forged in your weakness, this strength that has been built in your dependence, this strength that has been learned in the intimacy of being carried, is the very strength you will now need for the new and glorious season of your life. For I have carried you through the heat of the battlefield, but the carrying is now nearing its end. I am now approaching the new, safe, and solid ground that I have prepared for you. And I'm about to gently set you down on your own 2 feet. And you will discover, to your own astonishment and delight, that you are no longer the weak, wounded, and faltering soldier who collapsed on the field. You are a warrior made strong, whole, and resilient by the very act of being carried. We have journeyed together, you and I, back through the smoking ruins and the treacherous landscapes of the battlefield of your past. You have seen with new eyes the mystery of the footprints in the sand. You have begun to grasp the divine and beautiful paradox of how you grew stronger in your faith and your character, even as I was carrying you in my arms. But now, my beloved child, the time for explanation and for metaphor is drawing to a close. The time has come for the great and final revelation, the central and foundational truth upon which your entire life, your worth, and your eternal security must now be built. I must now declare to you, with all the love of my Father's heart and all the authority of your Creator and your Redeemer, the single most important truth of your entire journey. So let all of heaven fall silent. Let the earth hold its breath. Let every principality and every power in the unseen realm listen with a holy awe. Let the great accuser, the one who has relentlessly whispered lies to you about your own strength and your own failure, be struck dumb and be banished from this sacred moment. For I am about to declare to you who I have been for you, who I am for you now, and who I will always be for you in your every trial and your every struggle. It was not your own grit that brought you through the fire. It was not your own resilience that saved you from the flood. It was not luck or fate or chance that preserved you in the storm. It was me, and it was always me. Hear the word of your God, the great I am, the one who has never taken his eyes off you. I am the one who has carried you through. This is the great truth that will now set you free from the two terrible and exhausting burdens you have been carrying for so long, the burden of your pride and the burden of your shame. First, this truth must set you free from the heavy burden of your pride. I know that a part of you, the part that has survived, has been tempted to look back at your journey and to feel a secret and a subtle pride. You have been tempted to believe that you are a self-made spiritual man or woman. You have told yourself the story of your own strength, your own tenacity, your own refusal to give up. But this pride, while understandable, is a heavy weight that I have come to lift from your shoulders, for it separates you from me, and it separates you from others. It creates a lonely and a false independence. So I declare to you today that I am the one who has carried you, so that you may be freed from the exhausting burden of having to maintain an image of your own strength. You do not have to pretend to be strong anymore, but you do not have to act like you have it all together. You can finally rest in the beautiful and liberating reality that my strength has always been and will always be your true source. You can now walk through life with a new and a profound humility, a humility that does not need to take credit for its own survival, a humility that gives all the glory to me where it rightfully belongs. Your survival is not a testament to your own greatness. It is a testament to mine. And even more importantly, this truth must now set you free from the crushing prison of your shame. You have looked back at your moments of utter collapse, at your times of profound weakness, at the nights you whispered, "I cannot go on," and you have felt a deep and a pervasive shame. You have believed that your need to be carried was the ultimate sign of your spiritual failure. But I declare to you today that I am the one who has carried you, so that you may be freed from this prison of shame forever. Your weakness was not your failure. It was the very key that unlocked the door to the glorious and intimate experience of my caring grace. Your helplessness was not a source of my disappointment. It was a source of my greatest delight, for it allowed me to finally show you the profound depth of my Father's heart for you. You do not have to be ashamed of having been carried by your God. It is, in fact, your greatest and most beautiful honor. It is the very heart of our love story, and you must understand the unconditional nature of this caring. I have carried you not because you were worthy of being carried. I have carried you simply because I am love, and it is my very nature to carry my children when they are weak. I have carried you not because you prayed all the right prayers or performed all the right religious duties. I have carried you simply because I am faithful to my own promises, and I have promised to never leave you nor forsake you. I carried you on your good days, when your heart was full of faith, and I carried you on your bad days, when your heart was full of doubt and fear. I carried you when you were walking in obedience, and I carried you even in the moments when you stumbled and fell into sin. My carrying of you has never, for a single moment, been conditional on your performance. It is a constant, an unchanging, and a foundational reality of your life, based not on your fluctuating character, but on my own unchanging character and my everlasting covenant with you. And you must know the personal nature of this caring. When you were at your weakest, I did not dispatch an angel to carry you, though I have legions at my command. I did not send a lesser power or delegated authority to sustain you. And no, I, myself, the creator of the stars and the maker of the mountains, the King of all glory, stooped down from my throne. I came to you in your brokenness, and I carried you personally. It was my everlasting arms that held you. It was my shoulder that your weary head rested upon. The great and holy work of sustaining you in your darkest and most desperate hour was a personal, an intimate, and a loving act that I reserved for myself alone. This is the true measure of your infinite value to me. I would not entrust your care to anyone else. This great truth, that I am the one who has carried you through, must now become the new and unshakable center of your identity. You are no longer to see yourself as the survivor who somehow made it. You are no longer to see yourself as the failure who almost didn't. Your true and eternal identity is this: you are the beloved one who was carried by God. This is an identity that leaves no room for pride. It is an identity that leaves no room for shame. It is an identity that is rooted entirely in my goodness and my grace. It is an identity that gives all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise for your survival to me, which is where it has always belonged. When you truly begin to live from this new reality, everything in your life will change. You will be able to face your future without fear, not because you're now confident in your own strength to walk, but because you're absolutely confident in the strength and the willingness of the one who will surely carry you again if you should ever falter. You will be able to love other people with a greater compassion and a greater wisdom, because you will know that they too are being secretly carried by me in ways that you cannot see. And you will be able to live with a new and a profound sense of inner peace. For the immense and crushing burden of self-reliance has now been lifted from your shoulders. Forever. Let this great and glorious declaration be the final and authoritative word over your past. Let it be the firm and unshakable foundation for your present. And let it be the bright and certain promise for your future. The story of your survival is not about you. It is about me. And it is the beautiful, tender, and powerful story of a great and a loving God who has always been and who will always be, the one who carries you through. You now rest in the glorious and unshakable truth that I am the one who has carried you through the fire and the flood. You have revisited the battlefields of your past with new eyes and have seen the evidence of my sustaining strength in your moments of utter weakness. You understand the divine paradox that you have grown stronger, not weaker. While being held in my arms, the memory of your journey has been forever reframed, not as a story of your lonely survival, but as a testament to my loving and powerful companionship. But my beloved child, a child is not meant to be carried forever. The intense and intimate season of being carried has now served its profound and necessary purpose. It has brought you safely through the treacherous wilderness. It has transported you over the impassable mountains of your trial, and it has delivered you now to the very border of a new and promised land. And here, at the edge of your new beginning, the season must shift. The time for being carried is ending, and the time for you to stand on your own 2 feet, but in a new way, and with a new and different strength, is now beginning. Therefore, the season of your profound helplessness, the time of your complete and utter dependence in my arms, while beautiful and necessary, has now fulfilled its purpose. And with the infinite tenderness of a loving father who is now teaching his cherished child to walk, I declare that the season of being carried is now coming to a close. And I am now gently, lovingly, and securely setting you down on solid ground. Feel my hands upon your shoulders as I gently lower you. Feel your own feet as they touch the ground. But you must understand, this is not the same ground upon which you collapse in exhaustion and despair. That was the sinking sand of your own finite strength. That was the rocky and treacherous terrain of your great trial. The ground upon which I am now placing your feet is an entirely new kind of ground. It is the solid ground of my faithfulness. It is bedrock. It is the unshakable, eternal reality of my character and my promises. This ground will not shift beneath you. It will not give way in a storm. It is the most secure and stable place in the entire universe, and it is now the foundation for your new life. It is the solid ground of your new identity. You are no longer standing on the uncertain and shifting ground of your own performance, your own goodness, or the opinions of others. You are now standing on the firm and settled reality of who you are in me, my beloved child, redeemed, forgiven, whole, and righteous. This is the ground of your true and eternal identity, and it can never be taken from you. And it is the solid ground of your healed past. The ground upon which I am setting you down has been cleared of all the rubble of your past failures. The graves of your dead dreams have been filled in and planted over with the seeds of new hope. The landscape is no longer littered with the painful monuments of your regret. The path forward is now clear. I know that as I set you down, you may feel wobbly at first. You may feel like a newborn foal, your legs trembling and unsure. That is to be expected, for you have not stood on your own for a very long time. But feel my hands still resting on your shoulders, steadying you, bringing you into balance, And I want you to feel the new and unfamiliar strength that is in your own legs. A strength that you did not possess before. For you must understand, the legs upon which you are now standing are not the same weak and weary legs that collapse on the battlefield. They are new legs, spiritual legs that have been supernaturally strengthened by my spirit while you have been resting in my arms. You will discover, to your own astonishment and delight, that you are far stronger than you think. For the strength you now possess is not your own. It is the very strength that was forged in you during your season of being carried. The end of being carried is now the beginning of walking. And this new walk will be entirely different from your old way of walking. This will be a walk of intimate partnership. Before this great trial, you often tried to walk alone, in your own strength, and you stumbled. And during the trial, I carried you alone, in my strength. But now, we will walk together. We will walk side by side, hand in hand, through this new land. I will not be a distant figure far ahead on the path. I will be right beside you. You will feel the strength of my hand holding yours. You will walk. Yes, but you will be constantly leaning on my strength, drawing from my wisdom, and listening to my voice with every step. This will be a walk of divine purpose. You are not just being set down to wander aimlessly in this new and peaceful land. You are being set down to walk with intention into the great and glorious purpose I have prepared for you. The battlefield is now behind you. The promised land is now before you. It is a land that I have called you to possess, to explore, and to bring my light and my love into. Every step you now take will have a new and an eternal significance. And this will be a walk of resurrection strength. The strength you now possess is the very strength of my resurrected Son. A strength that has overcome sin, that has conquered death, and that has defeated every power of hell. And with this new strength, you will find that you can now walk with peace and confidence through challenges that would have once crushed you. You will find that you can now run the race I have set before you and not grow weary. You will find that you can walk and not faint. This is the supernatural strength of the resurrected life, and it is now your own. I have now set you down. The ground is solid and unshakable beneath you. My loving hands are still on your shoulders, bringing you into a new and confident balance. But there's one thing you must now do. You must now take the first step. It is a step of faith. It is your active choice to believe that you are truly on new ground. It is your choice to believe that you truly possess a new strength. It is your choice to believe that I am truly with you and that I will never let you fall. Let go of the memory of my arms, my child, and trust the new strength in your own legs. Take your first, confident step in this new land. The season of you being a helpless and wounded passenger is now over. The glorious season of you being a strong, confident, and purposeful partner in my great adventure has now begun. You are no longer a wounded soldier being carried from the field of battle. You are a restored and an empowered child of the King, being commissioned to walk into the fullness of your inheritance. The journey ahead is beautiful. It is filled with hope, and we will walk it together, side by side, all the way home. You are now standing on new and solid ground. The long, exhausting, and intensive season of being carried through the battlefield of your trial is now complete. I have gently set you down on the firm foundation of my faithfulness and your new identity. The season of passive transportation is over, and the new season of active walking has now begun. But how are you to walk? Are you to walk in the old way, with the anxious, self-reliant striving of your past? Or are you to be so paralyzed by the memory of your past failures that you are afraid to walk at all? Neither. You must now learn how to walk in a new and a glorious way. You must learn how to walk with the constant and empowering memory of my arms. I know the two great temptations that you will now face as you begin this new journey. Now that you feel a new strength in your spiritual legs. The first great temptation will be to fall back into your old and familiar habit of prideful self-reliance. You will be tempted to forget that this new strength is my gift. You will be tempted to begin to take pride in your own ability to walk, to stand firm, to overcome challenges. And you will be tempted to slowly and almost imperceptibly begin to walk away from your deep dependence on me. This is the path of pride. And I tell you with a father's love, it will always, eventually, lead you back to another great and painful collapse. But there's a second and an equal temptation. It is the temptation of fearful timidity. You remember the pain of your past fall so vividly that you will be terrified of falling again. And this fear will tempt you to refuse to walk at all. You will be tempted to stand perfectly still on the solid ground I have placed you on, afraid to take any new risks, afraid to face any new challenges, for fear that you are not yet strong enough. This is the path of fear, and it will keep you from ever entering into the fullness of the beautiful and fruitful promised land that now lies before you. But my beloved child, I am now calling you to a new and a third way of walking, a way that is gloriously free from both the arrogance of pride and the paralysis of fear. It is a walk of profound and humble confidence. It is a confidence that is not based on your own ability to stand, but on my unfailing and eternal promise to catch you if you should ever stumble. Your new confidence is not born from a denial of your past weakness. On the contrary, it is born directly from the deep and grateful memory of having been so lovingly carried through it. This is a new confidence born from being carried. How do you live and walk in this new way? It is a life that is learned through the daily practice of several new and holy disciplines of the heart. First, you must begin every single day with a discipline of remembrance. Before you take your first steps into the challenges of the new day, I want you to practice the discipline of intentionally and gratefully remembering your past weakness. You must consciously remember the feeling of being utterly helpless. You must remember the feeling of collapsing on the battlefield. You must remember, with a profound sense of awe and gratitude, the feeling of being scooped up and held in my strong and loving arms. This remembrance is not meant to bring you shame. On the contrary, it is meant to bring you a deep and a beautiful humility. It is meant to remind you, at the very start of each day, where your true and lasting strength comes from. This daily, grateful remembrance of your past weakness will be the very thing that will protect you from all future pride. Having remembered your dependence, you are now to take your first step of the day, not with fear, but with a bold and a joyful confidence. Your confidence is not in the path, for it may sometimes be difficult. Your confidence is not in your own legs, for they may sometimes feel weak. Your confidence is in the ever-present, unchanging reality of my arms. You can walk boldly into any situation. You can face any challenge. You can take on any assignment I give you, because you now know, with an absolute and an unshakable certainty, that if you should stumble, if you should falter, I am right there to catch you. You are gloriously free to take great risks for me, because you are eternally safe in me as you walk through your day. I want you to learn the art of constantly leaning on me. This new walk is not an independent walk. I want you to imagine that we are walking together, side by side, so closely that your shoulder is always touching mine. I want you to learn to walk with a constant, conscious lean upon me. You are making your decisions. Yes, but you are constantly leaning into my wisdom for guidance. You are using your new strength. Yes, but you are constantly leaning into my greater strength for your sustenance. This conscious and constant posture of leaning upon me is the posture of perpetual communion and of restful dependence. And it is the very thing that will keep you from ever straying too far from the path. And finally, you must learn the discipline of getting up quickly after you stumble. My beloved child, you are now strong, but you are not yet perfect. In this life, you will have moments of weakness. You will stumble again. You will fall again. But your response to your stumbling must now be completely different. In your past, when you fell, you would lie there in the dust for a long time, wallowing in shame, in self-condemnation, and in despair. But now, when you stumble, you are to get up quickly. The moment you fall, you are to immediately turn your face to me, to receive my instantaneous forgiveness and my fresh supply of grace. And you are to get back on your feet and to take the very next step. There's to be no more wallowing. There's to be no more lengthy self-analysis. Your quick and graceful recovery from your failures will be one of the greatest and most powerful signs of your new maturity and your new strength in me as you learn to walk in this new and beautiful way. A profound miracle will take place in your soul. The old, frantic, and anxious energy of your past will be completely replaced by a new and a powerful, peaceful momentum. You will no longer be driven by the whip of fear, nor will you be hindered by it. You will not be puffed up with the poison of pride, nor will you be paralyzed by the chains of false humility. You will simply be walking, day by day, step by step, in a beautiful, a restful, and a powerful partnership with me, your loving Father, straight into the heart of the glorious destiny I have prepared for you. And so, my beloved, who now walks in a glorious strength, our journey of revelation has come to its close. From the profound exhaustion of a survivor who thought they had made it on their own, to the glorious and liberating truth that you are carried all along. From the revisiting of the battlefield with new eyes, to the understanding of the beautiful paradox of how you grew stronger in my arms. From the great and final declaration that I am the one who has carried you, to the gentle setting down of your feet on new and solid ground. I have brought you to this place of new beginning, and you now have the holy and practical instructions for how to walk in this new life. I want you to imagine yourself now as a small child, learning to walk for the first time. I, your father, am a few feet away, my arms open wide, my face beaming with delight and with pride. And you, with a smile on your face, are now taking your first, wobbly, but confident steps toward me. You are not afraid of falling, for you know that my arms are right there, ready to catch you. This is the image I want you to hold in your heart. It is the image of our new relationship. It is the picture of your new walk. The journey is not about the perfection of your steps. It is about the joy of walking together. Walk on, my precious child. I am right here, and I will never let you fall beyond the reach of my everlasting arms.